Alright, hi guys. This video is going to be reviewing some of the problems that you either did in class or for homework last night. I want you to have your work in front of you, that way you can check to see if what I'm doing is what you are doing, and if it's not what you're doing, what you can do to improve, and maybe like any mistakes that you are making. Before I go over the problems, something that I've been noticing about a lot of the work that we've been turning in is we're missing some of these like math qualities of a learner that are going to be on your report card, and it's something that we really pay a lot of attention to in 4th grade. Obviously with bar modeling, we're working on this first part where it says shows and explains your work. That's like with your picture and bars and stuff. In general, we're doing pretty well on this, but I do think that we need to get better at making sure we have our labels and making sure that we write our sentences and making sure that we show our dots, but that's kind of a work in progress. There's 2 other parts to this that I think that we need the most work on, and that would be neatness and attending to precision. I look at a lot of the work that we turned in, and I think that we can work harder at being neater and being more careful. So in general, you're going to get a grade on your report card that gives you a grade for your overall neatness. So that means, like, are you taking your time? Are you writing carefully? Are you writing neatly? Can the teacher read my handwriting? So I want us to pay special attention to that in the future. And then this other one I want us to pay attention to is attends to precision. That just means, like, I'm taking my time and I'm working carefully and I'm not making silly mistakes because I'm rushing. So, like, I'm really carefully putting down everything and thinking about why I'm putting it there, rather than just being like, oh, I'm in a rush and I'm going to make silly mistakes, like an adding mistake or a subtraction mistake, or not, I'm going to miss my bracket because I'm just kind of in a rush. So I want us to pay special attention to this and throughout the year, and especially now I want you to start really like thinking, am I showing my best work in everything that I do? So just keep that in mind. Now I'm going to start and we're going to go over some of these. So please follow along. Please check to see that you have what you have. If you want to like keep tallies for having, like if you're having all the parts that I'm saying, give your star if you have something correct. If it's wrong, I would like you to fix it on your paper, so then you are actively noticing the mistake and you are actively fixing the mistake. So let's start. It says Elena takes 80 photos on her vacation. She takes 4 times as many photos as Luke. How many photos does Luke have? Well, the same constant seems to be that the whole thing is about photos. So our variables have to be the 2 people. So we have 2 people, Elena and Luke, so they are 2 variables. So I'm going to put an E for Elena and L for Luke. And then I'm going to start. It says Elena takes 80 photos. All right, so I know Elena's bar, and I'm going to write it on the outside with my bracket. She takes 80 photos. She takes 4 times as many photos as Luke. So I know that that means Elena has more than Luke. So that means that Elena takes 4 times as many. So I'm happy I wrote that 80 outside the bar because I have to split this bar up. So that's why we put our bracket and our numbers on the outside. And then Luke gets 1. And then I double check. It says that she takes 4 times as many, and that's what my bars are showing. How many photos does Luke take? And here is my question mark. This should be your original your bar before you start doing any actual equations. So first of all, what I'm noticing is that I'm looking for a part. So I know that if I'm looking for a part, like this, Luke is a piece of the whole thing, I'm going to be either subtracting or dividing because I know that I'm going to get a smaller number. And just common sense wise, Elena has 80, so Luke obviously has less. So I'm going to have to get to a smaller number. What I'm going to do is I'm noticing that since these are the same, if I can figure out one of these, then I know that I also have Luke's bar. So I'm looking at this 80 bracket, and I notice the 80 is kind of like hugging this whole bar. And I'm noticing that it's hugging 1, 2, 3, 4 equal parts. So my first step is going to do 80 divided by 4, which gets me 20. So then that means that each part of these is 20. So I know that Luke takes 20 photos. So I'm going to write that in a sentence neatly. And this just helps your teacher and us to realize that you understand, you know what your answer is, and that you have a final answer that you're circling. All right, so give yourself, check over your work, and then we're going to go over number 2. Number 2 says, a museum has 75 carvings in its collection. It has 10 more pieces of pottery than carvings. It has 3 times as many paintings as pieces of pottery. I'm thinking that I have 3 variables here because I'm seeing there's 75 carvings, there's also pottery, and there's also paintings. So I'm going to do carvings, and I can't just do that. I'm going to have to like write a little bit more just because they both start with the same letter, okay? So a museum has 75 carvings. All right, there we go. I'm going to make my bar for carvings, and it has 75 carvings, okay? It has 10 more pieces of pottery than it has carvings. So I know that it has more pottery, and I know that these two are the same, and I know that this is 10. And before I go on, sometimes I ask, like, what else do I know? I just right now am already like, well, I know that this bar is the same as this bar, so this bar also has to be 75. So then all together total, I know that the whole entire pottery bar is 85 because 75 plus that 10 extra gets me to 85, okay? It has, let's see, it has 10 more pieces of pottery than carving. It has 3 times as many paintings as pieces of pottery. So I'm going to make 3 times, here's my 1 pottery bar, I need 3 times as many. Here's my 2, here's my 3, okay? And what I'm realizing is that, I'm going to put 2 dots in these. These are the same as this whole pottery bar. So already I'm thinking, well, if the pottery, the whole of the pottery is 85, then I know that this piece is 85, this piece is 85, and this piece is 85. So the question says, how many paintings does the museum actually have? I know that if I have 3 85s, I can multiply 85 times 3, and then I get 255. So I know that the museum has 255 paintings. My answer, I'm going to circle it. Okay? All right, let's check and do another one. School A collects 76 bundles of newspaper for recycling. School B collects 5 times the number of bundles as School A. How many bundles of newspaper does School B collect? Okay, so I know I have 2 variables and they're 2 different schools. I have School A and I have School B. School A, they're telling me that they have 76 bundles of newspaper. So I'm going to check that one off. School B collects 5 times the number of bundles. Well, if School A has 1, I need 5 times 1, which is 5. 2, I'm just going to run out around. 3. So you know what, I'm running out of room, and I feel like a lot of us do this, and then we try to squish. I'm just going to make my bar smaller, because that way it can fit, and I can still attend to precision, and I can still be neat. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then I have my 5 bars, okay? How many bundles of newspaper does School B collect? I'm going to put my question mark right here. My first step, obviously, in realizing is that this bar is the same as all of these. So if A is 75, I know that this one is 75, and this one's 75, and this one's 75, and this one's so forth. I'm going to multiply because I know that multiplication is repeated addition. So I'm going to do 75 times how many bars School B has, which is 5. And then I can find out. Did I do that wrong? Oh, I did do that wrong. I was wondering. Wait, 76. I was like, that's not the answer I got before. Oh my goodness. So I'm going to go back and change that. I got copied down. This is why you have to pay attention, because I accidentally wrote 75, but it's 76. I'm going to do 76 times 5. And I end up getting 380. And so I know that School B collects 380 bundles of newspaper. There's my sentence, and that is my final answer. Okay? Check those. Make sure you have all the necessary parts. And then we have a few more. Let's see. A baker makes 32 rolls in the morning. He makes 64 rolls in the afternoon. He packs all the rolls equally into 4 boxes. How many rolls does each box have? Okay, so I have a baker. He's baking in the morning and the afternoon. And then he seems to pack them all up equally into 4 boxes. So this is like a 2-part one. I might do, I guess, a before and after, because this is kind of like first he has to bake them and then after he has to pack them. So I'm going to focus on just the before. He has the morning and then he's in the afternoon. So he's kind of baking all day. And in the morning, they're telling me he has 32 rolls. And then in the afternoon, he has 64 rolls in the afternoon. Now, I know that like 32, in my head, I'm just thinking, well, 32 plus 32 is 64. So this should be double the amount. And then it says how many rolls. Okay, so let's see. We have 64 rolls in the afternoon. And then he packs all the rolls equally into 4 boxes. Well, before I do that, I'm looking at my model right here. And before I can go to the after, I've solved my 2 parts, but I have not yet solved my whole. I know that it's not technically asking me for it, but I'm realizing that in order for me to do the next part, the after, I have to figure out what the whole is. So I'm going to do 32 plus that 64, and I'm going to get my whole is 96. So then in my mind, I'm thinking he made a total of 96 rolls. Okay, good. Now after, it says he packs all the rolls equally. So I know that all the rolls is 96. So he takes all the rolls and he packs them up. And there's 96 of them. And he's packing them into 4 boxes. And it says equally, so I know that I have 4 dots because they're in equal amount of boxes. And then it says how many rolls does each box have. So I'm going to figure out how many rolls go inside every box. Well, again, if I'm looking at this, I'm noticing that 96 is my whole and that I'm trying to find a part. So I know that I'm taking my 96 and I'm breaking it down into a smaller number. I could subtract or divide, but what's telling me that I shouldn't divide is the fact that I have all these equal parts. And that I know that division is when you take something and you put it into equal parts and you're splitting it up into equal groups, which is exactly what I'm doing here. So I'm going to do 96 divided by 4, and I end up getting 24. And so I know that the answer is he has 24 rolls in each box. And I like this before and after model because I can see exactly how you got from the before to the after. And it's letting me see that you're realizing that 2 things are kind of happening to the rolls. They're first being baked and then they're being packed. All right, we have 2 more problems to go over. Richard has 90 pennies. He keeps 10 pennies and divides the rest of the pennies equally among his 4 sisters. How many pennies does each sister get? Okay, so it's all about pennies, so I know that that's not the variable, but it seems to be about 2 people. It's about Richard, and it seems to be about his sisters. Those are the 2 people who seem to be sharing everything. And it's saying that Richard has 90 pennies. Honestly, I'm going to do before and after just to show this. So before, there's just Richard. And Richard has 90 pennies. And Richard is rich. So, 90 pennies. And then after, what he does is he's going to keep 10 of the pennies, and then he's going to divide them between his sisters. So here's what's interesting and that I have to realize is that my whole stays the same. It's not... in general, I'm still going to have 90 pennies in the end. He's not getting any extra. He's giving some to his sister, but I'm still knowing that together they're going to have 90 pennies. So Richard keeps 10, and then he divides the rest of his pennies equally among his 4 sisters. So he has 4 sisters, so let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I know they all get the same amount. How many pennies does each sister get? And I want to know that little piece right there. So, if I'm stopping to look at this, I know that part is done, or before it's done, I'm trying to focus on the after. And what I stop and look at is, first of all, I'm realizing that I have the whole, and then I'm trying to find a part. So I know that the 90, I'm trying to get to a smaller number, so I'm either going to have to subtract or divide. And then I'm also realizing that I do see some equal parts here. And when I see equal parts, I know that I can divide to figure out what goes inside each of them. However, I'm noticing that I have this like pesky 10 right here that's not the same as all of the sisters. So what I'm going to do first is before I can split up that 90 into 4 equal groups, I kind of have to get rid of Richard's 10 to see how many total pennies the sisters even have. So I'm going to do, my first step is going to be 90 minus 10. And I know that in your head you can do this problem, but I still want you to write it down because it lets us as teachers know what your thought process was. So if I get rid of Richard's 10 and I take it away, I have 80 pennies left. And I know that that means that the sisters, they have a total of 80 pennies, okay? The question, though, is how many does each sister get? So again, if I know the whole of the sisters is 80, I'm still trying to find that part. So I'm knowing that I know that I can either subtract or divide. But this is where I want you to start to realize that you should divide because these are equal parts. So if I'm taking 80, I'm splitting it into equal parts, so I know that I'm dividing. So my step number 2 is going to be 80 divided by the 4 sisters, and I get 20, so I know that each sister gets 20 pennies. And I can check 20, 40, 60, 80. 80 plus 10 is 90, and that all seems to work out. So I'm going to write my sentence. Each sister gets 20 pennies. Circle it, and I have it. And I also am numbering my steps up here because if you don't number it, sometimes it's hard to figure out what you did first, and it just makes our lives easier so we can follow your thought process. All right, we have one more. Lance and Alex have 70 pencils. Lance has 4 times as many pencils as Alex. Alex's pencils are shared equally among 2 children. How many pencils does each child get? Okay, so I'm thinking already this is a before and after because we have Lance and Alex and they have their pencils, but then Alex is gonna share the pencils with other kids. So I know that this is kind of a 2-part, so I'm gonna do a before and after model. And then the before, they're saying Lance and Alex, who I know are my 2 variables, and they're saying they have 70 pencils. So I know that 70 means together what they have, so I know that 70 is my whole. Lance has 4 times as many pencils as Alex. So I know that Alex Lance has 4 times as many as Alex, okay? Then it says Alex's pencils are shared equally. Okay, well, I can't even do that yet because I don't even know how many pencils Alex has. So what I need you to realize is looking here is that I only have one number on the board. I only know 70, which is my whole. I'm trying to find, I first of all have to figure out what goes inside all of these things. I know that it's the same number because these are all equal parts. So if I'm looking at my whole, my 70, I know that I can either subtract or divide to figure out what goes inside each part. And again, I know that I'm going to divide because I have these equal parts. So I have to divide. A lot of us, I feel like, wanted to divide 70 by 4. But I need us to start seeing that this bracket is the whole bracket, and it's hugging both Lance and Alex. So I know that this 70 means that this plus this plus this plus this plus this is 70. So I have to divide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I have 5 equal parts that go into that 70. So my first step is going to be to do 70 divided by 5, and I'm going to end up getting 14. So I know that inside all of these is 14, okay? Now, I don't really care how many Lance has because Lance is kind of done with the problem. The next part says Alex's pencils are shared equally among 2 children. So I have Alex's pencils, and he has 14. Alex has 14 pencils. And if he's sharing them equally among 2 kids, I know that I'm taking that and I'm splitting it in half because he has his 14 and he's splitting it apart and sharing it with 2 children. So I need to figure out how many pencils each child gets. So my equation, again, is I have a whole, which is my 14, and I'm splitting it into 2 equal parts, so I know I have to divide. So I'm going to do 14 divided by 2. And I know that you know 14 divided by 2, and you can do it in your head. But once again, I want you to write it down so that the teacher knows your thought process. Part of doing bar modeling is explaining what you're thinking in your head. And 14 divided by 2 is 7. And so my answer is each child gets 7 pencils. And I'm going to circle my final answer. I'm hoping that we're starting to feel a little bit more comfortable in remembering bar modeling. The reason that we're going over all of these problems is because when we get to 4th grade, we don't want to have to spend, we want you to already have built all this background and to have already made the connections between last year, so that way when we start 4th grade, it'll be a much easier transition for you. So we're going to keep practicing and doing more problems, but I hope that this was helpful, and that if you have any questions about any of the problems, please ask me, okay? All right, bye guys.